this movie. Okay, all right, let's get into it. Wait, actually, before we do that, am I the only person who sees the similarities between these two? Am I crazy? These are like the same poster, right? Godzilla Kong: The New Empire tells a story of, well, Godzilla and Kong, and their new ways of life following the events of Godzilla vs. Kong. Kong now lives in Hollow Earth and is struggling with the fact that he may very well be the last living Kong in the entire world. Of course, that's not true because they spoil that fact all over the trailers, so the intrigue doesn't really work there, but whatever. And Godzilla, well, I mean, he's just doing the same thing he's been doing for the last 10 years. He kind of just walks around Earth and kills any other Titan that gets in his way. And obviously, a new threat rears its ugly head in Hollow Earth that threatens the existence of anything and everything on planet Earth. And well, Godzilla and Kong gotta put a stop to it. And with the plot synopsis out of the way, I'm not kidding when I say this. This might just be the dumbest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, this movie is unbridled, unfiltered, relentless stupidity. But I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't have a lot of fun watching it. I will be going into spoilers in a sec because, like, there's just not really a whole lot to talk about here without going into spoilers, other than just saying the monsters are cool and the fights are cool, and yeah, I mean, that's it, because I think most people watching this review will have already seen the movie, actually, considering the amazing opening box office weekend it just had. And if you haven't seen it, listen, you know why you're watching this movie. You're buying a ticket to watch a movie about a bunch of monsters slamming into each other and nothing else. You're gonna get that in spades, alright? I mean, that is literally all this movie has to offer. And if you want that, it's right there waiting for you. Just go watch it. Otherwise, spoiler time. So as usual, let's start off with the negatives first and then end with the positives. And funnily enough, I really only have one negative with this movie, but unfortunately, this one negative takes up so much of the movie's runtime, and y'all know what I'm about to say, it's the human beings. The human stuff in this movie, as usual, is fucking terrible. It's boring, it's dumb, but not in a fun way like the monster stuff is. It's just bad. Some of the actors are having fun at least, like Brian Tyree Henry and Dan Stevens, and I love Rebecca Hall, and I hope she's getting paid well for this movie because, like, fuck, man, her character just has nothing to do in this movie. Oh, and you know what? Actually, maybe I do have one more negative, and that is the villain in Scar King. If you've seen my Godzilla -1 review, which has been edited to all hell thanks to YouTube's copyright strikes, you'll know that I'm a lifelong Godzilla and Kong fan. So I get it, you know, villains are not the strongest part of these movies, and Scar King has a pretty cool introduction, and his fighting style is pretty neat, and I think as a character, he is cool. It's just that I was left with more questions than answers with him. And unfortunately, I mean, he's dead, so we're not gonna get any of that. Like, why did he want to take over the world? Hollow Earth looked pretty fucking good and pretty spacious and, you know, uninhabited, so why did he want to take over the overworld? I guess to get sunlight or something? I don't really know. I wanted to know how he got control over Shimo, the giant ice titan, as well. I mean, they had that thing chained up and whipped, basically, and I was just way more intrigued with that stuff and the history of the Kongs in Hollow Earth and not, you know, the fucking human beings. Also, a lot of the movie's weight when it comes to the kaijus and scale is largely gone. That was in the last few movies. The creatures in this movie kind of just move like fucking Power Rangers characters. There's no more weight or gravitas to anything. I guess that's a negative, at least for me it is. But enough with that. Now on to the positives. The first positive being, yes, the monsters and the fights are indeed very cool. You know how people describe the last movie, Godzilla vs. Kong, as like, you know, what a kid saw when he smashed action figures together? That's kind of what this movie is, but on steroids. I think that description is even more accurate for this movie. For instance, there's a sequence at the end of this movie where Kong has to go to the surface and team up with Godzilla, and then they go back to the center of the earth to have a brawl with the main villain. But as they're fighting, the gravity of Hollow Earth just like shuts off. So now it's just a giant zero gravity brawl between all these giant monsters. Not to mention Kong literally rides Godzilla into battle while wearing a giant metal fist. This movie, man. And obviously, I mean, when I say this movie is stupid, it's not like the movie doesn't know this. You know, the movie is very aware. I think that's made extremely evident by Dan Stevens' performance in the movie, who actually worked with the movie's director, Adam Wingard, on a previous movie called The Guest. A really great flick, and I'd like to talk about it one day on my channel. But I mean, that stupid fun element of this movie is further gotten across when Kong finally meets the other giant apes and uses one of their kids as like a fucking baseball bat, basically. Beyond the action though, I think the movie's got a good tone and a nice synth score to accompany it. I mean, the movie opens up with like Kong having a toothache and he's got to go to the dentist to fix it. If that doesn't tell you what kind of movie you're in for, I don't know what will. That's all I have to say. As mentioned earlier too, I did like Dan Stevens' performance. He had a great energy and a level of goofiness to him because he just kind of knew what movie he was in. He was also the kaiju dentist, and they established very clearly in the movie that he's a dentist for multiple kaijus, not just Kong. Again, truly, this movie is so fucking stupid. I also really enjoyed what they did with both Godzilla and Kong in the movie. I mean, Godzilla is largely sidelined in this movie, but at least they still portray him as like the biggest savage out of every other Titan. He'll throw down with any of them and come out on top. And you know, I just really enjoy seeing Godzilla remain the top dog of the Titans. It's nice. On the other hand, this is basically Kong's movie. I mean, Godzilla vs. Kong was mainly a Kong movie too, but this one goes all in on the Kong stuff. I mean, the good half of this movie is devoted to almost entirely Kong's journey of self-discovery in Hollow Earth. The movie starts off with him being sad and lonely. We see him scouring Hollow Earth for any signs of his own kind, and the visual storytelling is really great in that aspect. Like legit, this movie has unironically really great visual storytelling with the kaiju stuff. There are long stretches of this movie where we don't get any dialogue at all. It's just kaijus grunting and snarling at each other, and we could totally understand everything that's going on. Kong's lonely, Kong has to fight his own kind, and when he eventually finds them, he doesn't want to kill them though because he's happy to see them. He also sees his own people being enslaved by the Scar King, so he wants to break them out, and then he also has to become a father figure of sorts for this little shit Suko. I'm not even kidding when I say this. Kong's journey throughout Hollow Earth in this movie is legitimately good. So much is conveyed without any dialogue, and I commend the filmmakers for that. And I think this movie further shows that you could maybe have a movie with just kaijus one day. Obviously, they would need to be on board with watching a silent movie effectively of just monsters grunting at each other, but I would be on board. I think a lot of people would, because a lot of people were saying that that's the best part about this movie, and I am in agreement with that. It is. And the last notable positive I'll throw this movie's way is that I was happy to see Millie Bobby Brown and all the characters associated with her absent in this movie. I have nothing against her or the other actors, but Godzilla vs. Kong had 2 human subplots, and I was just happy to see this movie only had 1. Oh, and another positive is that I was happy to see Mothra back. I did see her resurrection coming from a mile away with Gia's character. I also found it kind of funny how this movie portrays a Skull Island tribe as like psychic geniuses who are able to harness the power of Earth's gravity to craft megastructures and are also able to communicate with people telepathically. It's a mouthful. I mean, what the fuck did I just say? It's even funnier when you look back at Peter Jackson's King Kong movie. Turns out that these guys right here are psychic gravity manipulators who also live in the center of the Earth. Yeah, wow. Though I do like that kind of stuff in these movies. I mean, the legendary monster movies have always had this like crazy conspiracy theory motif going on throughout them, and it's always added some nice goofy flair to these movies. And they add that in this movie by saying that the Egyptian pyramids were built with gravity manipulation. And so all those people shitting on this movie for following in the footsteps of Godzilla Minus One and saying it's like a disgrace to the Godzilla brand, please just shut the fuck up. The Godzilla franchise has always had movies from both ends of the spectrum. You have your serious and somber movies about humanity and the human spirit's will to survive, and then you have the really stupid and goofy movies where Godzilla does wrestling moves and other kaijus. Or movies in the franchise like where Don Fry punches a woman who's dressed like Neo. Yeah. And then Godzilla also kills the 90s Godzilla, featuring Sum 41. So stupid. All these kinds of movies have a place in the Godzilla mythos, and frankly, it's just dumb to gatekeep and try to make other people feel bad about the movies that they like, especially in a franchise like this. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. I still don't even know how to say the title of this movie either. Is it Godzilla x Kong? Is it Godzilla and Kong? Is it just Godzilla Kong? I don't know. The title of this movie is pretty shit, and I wonder what they're gonna call the next one, because at the end of this movie, Kong does turn into King Kong, so I wonder if they're just gonna call it Godzilla and King Kong. I don't know, I'm interested. Either way, you know why you're buying a movie ticket for this movie. You want to see big monsters fight, and you're gonna get it, and that's it. That's all I have to say. I guess I said a lot more than I wanted to, honestly, but, you know, whatever. Thanks for watching, everybody. Much love as always. Like and comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.